Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to discuss and talk about global economic impact due to COVID-19. So my name is Dr. T. VIJAYA, living in Netherlands for last 22 years, working in Royal Philips, the Netherlands. Okay, so topic for discussions. So today, there are a couple of points that I have gone through that. I did some analysis on what is the global economic impact due to coronavirus. And before I get into these details, let me try to introduce myself briefly and what is COVID-19 and its rippling effects, facts and figures, and what is the immediate impact and long-term impacts, and how are we going to mitigate this economical challenges. And finally, the question and answers open to you. We'll listen from your questions. Okay. As briefly introduced by our colleague, my name is VIJAYA, Head of Data Compliance and Quality Assurance from Royal Philips, the Netherlands. Philips is more than 125 years company, started in 1891 in Eindhoven, the fifth biggest city in Netherlands. So they started producing light bulbs. So today it's more than 125 years. We are one of the market leaders in medical equipment products innovations. So Philips means innovation. Philips has got thousands of patents, and whenever people come with the new products, so in a way or other, Philips is known to. So in Philips, we have more than 81,000 employees currently, but at times we had more than 2 lakh employees across the world. We have a presence across the world, more than 100 countries. So in terms of my education, so I did my Master of Science, Physics from Annamlai, MCA from Madras Christian College, MBA from Anna University, another MBA from Webster University, USA, and recently I did my doctorate in management from India. So whatever the observations, views, opinions that I'm going to present it now, it's totally my own personal views. No way connected to my employers. So it does not reflect any of my employer views whatsoever. COVID-19. So what is the short-term impact in terms of time factor, and what is the long-term impact on the time factor? So if you look at the horizontal yellow bar, it talks about time period. So immediately, so what is that it's happening today? It's a social distancing. So in India, we say that you keep away three feet. In Netherlands, we call 1.5 meter distance. In some countries, they call for a 3-meter social distance. And the other aspect of the corona is the movement of people, because the virus itself doesn't move. So only people carry from one place to another place. That means movement of people. So due to these two important factors, social distancing and movement of people, it leads to closure of offices, financial markets, events, sports, etc., resulting in economical impact. So what about the long term? So we do not know currently when this coronavirus is going to be evaded away. Do we have a vaccine? Are we going to have a cure? Nobody knows it. So that brings our factor from comfort zone to safety zone. So that leads to global recession. So what does it mean? It leads to dip in the demand. There is no buying power, low consumption, and investor hesitancy. Nobody wants to invest in any new projects. So this means that there is no discriminatory money to invest, spend whatsoever. So that means that we go from comfort zone to safety zone. Another important question dilemma is that What are we going to do? Are we going to save economy first, or are we going to save people first? So some leadership across the world, they say that let us save the economy before saving the people. But some says let us save the people before we save the economy. But most of the countries across the world, they go in the direction that let us save the people before we save the economy. So I'm not going to spend any time on this. This is the dilemma which is there across the world. So ripple effect. So what does it mean? So due to Corona, due to short-term, long-term impacts, almost all sectors of industries collapsed. And some are still stand right, like what you see here in the red. So in the globally, so what has been estimated is that the fall world trade is somewhere between 13% to 32% in this 2020 because of this pandemic situation. So, but in this discussion, it is a huge topic. So I focused on three major, I would say, countries or continents. So one is America, second is Europe, third is India. So what is the global economic impact in a country perspective as well as the sector perspective? If we look at the left-hand side, a graph, a simple graph I came up with. In the x-axis, we talk about the impact, the economic impact. The y-axis it says about the developed countries like America, Europe, China, India, Africa. So I plotted certain dots here based on the four justification I have it. So when I say the social security systems, that means highly developed. And when they have a high social security systems, meaning that developed country. Well documented, unorganized and organized labor, that's also one of the factors. We have a very good government medical provider supports and availability of micro and macro credit facility. So these four factors I took into consideration to define the developed countries, at least in this picture. If you look down here, so there are two sectors, two group of sectors, categories of sectors has been less critically impacted and highly impacted sectors. One is IT, still the business goes on as usual. You look at healthcare, where I'm from, Philips. So this is not really heavily impacted. If you look at the right-hand side, automobile sectors, there are no cars. Airlines, no flights, no tourism, no hospitality, no manufacturing, no supply chain, no high-end fashion. Entertainment is completely down. No banking activities in terms of granting loans or new investments. So who are the key stakeholders, key players in this COVID? One is, of course, the people. Second is the company, organization, and country as a whole. So what does it mean to people? So that means there's a job cut. Job is gone. Pay cut. So employees are asked to cut the pay 50%, 70%, 75%. Depends on the country to country. This is stress. Social security. So what happens? What will happen tomorrow? We don't know. So that puts the people under a huge stress. What about organization? Bankruptcy. So unable to meet the expenses and pay off. In the revenue loss, absolutely no money to flow in. So they will not be able to really meet out any expenses. So what about the country perspective? So there are huge cost on medical areas, employee salary. So those are all the key things, which is from the country perspective. Okay, so let's look at the impact on the India. Huge impact in automobile, as we briefly touched. So here I have given a graph which says that the negative 23% on automobile sector and power sector minus 18% and IT minus 16.2%. So I can just go like this for different sectors, but it clearly indicates that it's a huge impact on those sectors in India. So the growth rate is expected between 5.1 to 5.6 against predicted 6% growth rate. So what about America? So there is more than 33 million people who would file for unemployment benefit. 15 big companies already filed for bankruptcy. If you look at the GDP, the GDP is now touching minus 4.8% in quarter 2020. So what are we talking about? Are we just GDP? So what is this buzzword? So GDP is nothing but a monetary value of finished goods and services made within the country. That means now we are going for the negative percentage. So there has got a huge impact on country as a whole, and it leads to a big recession. Let's go to, but in Europe, unfortunately, I don't have the full impact details of all the countries within Europe. So I took a sample of Netherlands. So as of now, 60 plus companies and institutions have filed for bankruptcy. More than 10,000 people lost their jobs. 224% impact on food and beverage industry. So basically the drying up consumer spend, 5% reduction in consumer spending. So it's a huge impact in Netherlands. So we talked about the problems. So problems in India, problems in America, problems in Netherlands. So what is the solution? How are we going to really manage this, come out from this global crisis? See, one of the good thing, I would not say good thing, it's a fair play, is that across the world, all countries got affected. That means we start from the scratch. So it's all in the same level, and we have to really come out from this global economical crisis. So if you look at the right-hand side, as I briefly touched in my earlier slides, the human factor is important, human being, companies, and the country. So how are we going to bring back at least to zero and plus and flattening these curves? So the left-hand side, so these are all the strategies which we have to follow in order to come out from this economical global crisis. So one of the instruments, I mentioned 4, health and social protection. So one of the strategy we should follow aggressively to come over this. Monetary policy. Monetary policies is a policy which is basically derived or arrived by the central banks, like in India, RBI. So they should come with a policy, and together, fiscal policy. So the government should come with a fiscal policy that how they are going to really deal this with expenditures, tax rates, other rebates. And together, the financial and regulatory policies. There are some supervisory organizations, how they are going to supervise and monitor and stimulate economical growth in these sectors. The right-hand side, the desired target outcome would be flattening the sufferings of the human being, flattening the bankruptcy curve of organizations, and flattening the recession curve. So by doing the left-hand side, you can try to bring the expected targeted outcome would be to come from negative to at least to 0 and above. So what are all the factors, stimulus factors, to overcome this coronavirus from USA perspective. So they have already 2 trillion American dollars have been reserved for this as a rescue package, and 367 billion in loans and grants to small businesses. So just for your imagination or understanding, 1 billion is equal to approximately 8,200 crores of Indian rupees. So more than 130 billions of American dollars are reserved for hospitals and healthcare providers. And 150 billion is grants to state and local governments. So when you say state and local governments, it's more like a federal, central governments and state governments. Almost 60 billion for schools and universities. So what are the stimulus factors, inducing factors to overcome this crisis, global economical challenges? So in Europe, $100 billion are allocated to ensure employment across Europe. 540 billion euros to support workers, business, member states. In some of the European countries, even the governments are paying 75% of the salaries to their employees, where currently the employers are unable to pay them off. 1 billion euros set aside for protecting jobs, 20 billion euros for non-EU member countries. When it's a non-EU member countries, we have about 26 to 27 EU countries, like Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, France, etc., etc. So we also concern about non-EU member countries as well to fight against this pandemic. And also we are promoting research across EU countries for vaccination and also finding the medicine to kill this virus. 800 million euros set aside for member states to fight pandemic. So tapping the EU Solidarity Fund to help member states request for additional funding. So if you see that there are a lot of stimulus factors, a lot of funds are reserved to stimulate the economy as far as the Europe and USA is concerned. So let us look at what is the stimulus factors are provided in India. So far, at least to my knowledge, 1.7 lakhs crores stimulus package was declared by our finance minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, some weeks ago, and talking about free food grains, cooking gas, and giving some cash to poor women and elderly people. And they have waived off the EPF contribution to small and medium industries for 3 months. This means that no employer does not have to pay EPF contributions. And differing utility bills like electricity bills, property tax, or any other tax. They said you don't do it now, so do it at a later stage. And also EIA moratorium. So far, I have briefly touched what are the challenges, global economical impact due to COVID-19 for majority or for 3 countries, India, Netherlands, and America. And I also came with a framework and spelling out a few strategies that every country should come up with, which will produce the effect to overcome these recessions and also supports companies, organizations, and the people as a whole. So now the open to you for any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions. Floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Dear participants, now you can type your questions in the YouTube live chat. Dr. VIJAYA sir will answer your questions. Okay. So others can send your questions through mail, and you can get the reply from our speaker. Sir, thank you, sir.
Thank you all for giving this
Thanks for a nice
opportunity.
presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for a
Welcome.
nice presentation. Yeah, very interesting and informative session. This is again, I thank on behalf of the participants and also on the behalf of the Department of Business Administration, Annamalai University. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you all. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you. Dear participants, after the completion of this session, you have to submit your response for the assessment test, which you have sent it to your mail yesterday itself. As you know that your attendance is recorded based on the assessment test you submit. Tomorrow we will meet for the fourth day session by another expert. Thank you, one and all.